Hey, like my t-shirt.
Ah, lovely.
I don't know how I got hold of it. Oh, from the show, I think.
From the show, yeah. Right, got a few people coming on. Seems to be working.
Yeah.
Right then, so we're going to today we're going to do these. We're doing these weekly videos, our Travel Tip Tuesday videos, and we're going to pick a topic each week and try and give you some helpful tips for that subject. Obviously, if you've got any other questions about any of our trips, you can ask them as well. We're not just restricted. So if you've got any questions you want asking, if you've seen our trips online and you want to know something about it, just add a comment and we will answer that as well. But today we're going to be talking about bags. And most women love to have lots of bags. And I don't think us blokes aren't any different when it comes to bags to take away on trips with us. And I've got a cupboard full of bags for different purposes, for different trips. And we're kind of going to go through today so what bags we take on trips, how we pack our bags, and different ways of using our bags, really. So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today. Like I said, if you've just joined us and you've got any questions on any of our trips or anything else, you can still ask them as well. We're not just answering questions on bags today, but that's kind of the topic we're gonna pick up on. And obviously, most of our trips, to be fair, are trekking trips. So therefore, a lot of the time, our bags are being carried by somebody else. So either a mule is carrying it if we're in Morocco, a camel might be carrying it in the Sahara, or a Sherpa or a porter might be carrying it in Kilimanjaro Everest Base Camp. So it comes down to that age-old question that everybody asks, and I'll hand over to Dave to start answering this one. And the one question we get asked loads is, do you take a large rucksack or do you take a duffel bag? And Dave, do you want to start with this one?
Yes, I will start with this one. Some people do take large rucksacks. I personally have suffered. I've done a lot of traveling now, and I've suffered in my rucksack with having the arms ripped off, going into excess baggage and coming out last on the conveyor belt, and everybody waiting, and basically getting beaten to hell. 5 years ago, I made the investment, and it has been an investment in a duffel bag. And I have a 90-litre, it's a North Face duffel bag as it happens, but North Face duffel bag. It's bright red, so I can see it on the conveyor belt, because this is there's so many people trekking and going away. When you get to places like Kathmandu and Marrakesh, that to see your bright bag come round, you know it's yours a bit and you're off, and no one's getting confused. So I have a 90-litre duffel bag. I manage, even on the longest of treks, to get everything I need in there, and most importantly, probably certainly for the longer treks, when you've got yaks or mules carrying your bag, it is a very robust construction. These things aren't placed gently on a cradle and carried up the mountain with you. Certainly in Nepal, they're roped onto a yak, and that yak goes where it goes, and if it brushes against 5 walls on the way up, that's what it does. So a robust, very robust 90-litre bag suits me. I know, Keith, you take a slightly larger one than that, but that absolutely works for me in all those senses.
Yeah, I think, me wearing a North Face t-shirt here, I'm not advertising North Face in that sense, but I've always used a North Face duffel bag. I've got lots of them, and they do them in. And there's Dave's there. They do them in 5 different sizes. So they do them in a small, medium, large, extra large, and a double XL as well. And they go from, as Dave said, I think the medium 70 litres, the large is 90, the XL is 110, and the XXL is 130 litres. And I think, you know, the good thing with the North Face duffel bag is you can still wear it as if it's a rucksack. So you can put it, it's got straps on it so you can carry it through the airport. You can drag it through the airport. You know, it's got a really solid bottom on it. It's a harder material on the bottom. But I think the biggest issue I always find with the rucksack duffel bag debate is the fact that with a duffel bag, you have one compartment. You can open up the lid at the top, you can lift it up, and you can see everything that's in it to get it out. And I think, you know, the problem that I've always had with a large rucksack is the one thing you want is always at the bottom of the bag, not actually, you know, so you've got to pull everything out of your rucksack to actually find what you need. Other advantages with the duffel bag, obviously some of them are a more PVC material, some of them are more of a canvas material. The North Face ones are a PVC kind of material, and obviously that does give you extra protection to the elements as well. So it is going to remain more waterproof than a canvas style duffel bag as well. So I think that's probably the main reason why I opt to use the duffel bag, really. And I mean, like I say, I've got lots of different size ones. So depending on which trip I'm doing is which duffel bag that I'm going to take with me. I do find that I like to have a slightly bigger one than I need. Like, it does come with really good compression straps on the side of it, so you can reduce it down. And I think that's, you know, so it doesn't have to be as bulky, but kind of when you're coming home, if you want to take everything back with you, you've got just a bit of extra space. You don't want to be cramming everything into it. So I think for a little bit of extra money, then, you know, go bigger than what you need, because it isn't going to really matter in that sense. Obviously, some of our treks, you do have a bit of a weight restriction. So, you know, it's not like you can fill it up. You still have to abide by the weight that you need. Just want to talk about the weight limits for like Nepal trips, Dave. Yeah.
Going out on the plane, if we start at the very beginning, that's the easy bit, really. I mean, you usually have, going somewhere like Nepal, 5 kilos. And I mean, honestly, that's enough. But the issue is when you get to Nepal, whichever trek you go on, I'll just take 2 of them. There's the Everest Base Camp and the Annapurna trek. Done both of those, and it's exactly the same. At some point in that trek, you are going to get on a small plane. Yeti Airlines or similar. And that small plane, there is a limit of 15 kilograms, and that includes your backpack as well. So you can take loads out with you, and you can leave things safely in the hotel. There's a locker room that's all locked away. It's all tagged, so there's no problem with that. So you can leave sort of, if you like, your leisure gear in the hotel. But actually, when you're on the trek, you've got 15 kilograms, and you do kind of need to have that in mind, that when you're packing and you think to yourself, what is it I'm actually going to be wearing on the trek? What equipment am I going to be taking? Some of it I'll be wearing, like my big heavy boots, of course, and my big heavy jacket. Yeah, of course I shall wear those things, but there's a limit to that. And then what I've got left, I'm taking, it's got to come in at around 15 kilograms.
Yeah, and they're really strict on that as well, Dave, aren't they?
Yeah, they are very strict on that. Jay's just asking the question about EBC. Yeah, I use a 90-litre duffel bag. That's what I use. And I've done EBC, Annapurna. They're very similar in requirements of gear that you're going to wear and things that you need. So 90, yeah. Yes, so they're very strict on it, and you'll hear on the web and maybe from other people, oh, you can get away with higher. In theory, you can, but if the group is overweight, then they'll either ask you to jettison something, or you'll all be paying a levy, and it's quite steep, and we don't expect to be doing that. paying that, and certainly not expecting everybody to be chipping in, paying a levy because the group is overweight. So 15 kilograms is the weight. I'm just going to add one thing, Keith, and that is, again, on every trek I've been on, at some point, people have, by the end of the trek, unloaded some of their gear and giving it to Sherpas, and that has been a way. People have had boots that are perhaps 3/4 worn, and they've done their big trek, and they give those to the Sherpas because they are in need of gear and equipment. So there are ways of managing it, but 15k is what you're planning for. Keith.
Yeah, and I mean, I have been left behind on an Everest Base Camp trek with our group before because the group was so overweight that we had to sacrifice a member of the team, and I had to take one for the team and fly at a later time. So yeah, they are quite strict on it. So I mean, we were massively overweight to the point that we had to take a human being off the flight because the group in Namche. So yeah, that's really important. And I think, you know, when it comes to packing, you know, you have got to consider like what you're buying when you are doing a trek, especially for, you know, the EBCs and the Annapurna treks, because you are so restricted in weight. It's not a problem if you're doing kind of like a Sahara trek or a Mount Toubkal trek. You know, there's no real limit on what you can take in your duffel bag for those treks, and they're only kind of 4-day treks anyway, so you shouldn't need a great deal of weight. But when you're going for 18 days or, you know, 13, 15 days on an Annapurna EBC Gokyo Lakes trip, you know, you've got to get all of that stuff in certain things. Like, for example, you know, we'll do a video on sleeping bags at another time, but the sleeping bag is probably the one thing that you're going to add a lot of extra weight to your bag and a lot of bulk if you just go and buy a cheap sleeping bag from Mountain Warehouse, for example. You know, it's cheap for a reason, generally because they become really bulky, and also that bulk is then weight as well. So you've got to think about, actually, you know, am I going to buy lightweight stuff that allows me to take more other things in my bag than having a big heavy sleeping bag? So yeah, consider that.
Jay's asking some questions here. Hi Jay. I'd like us to answer them. Jay, you one of the best boots and rucksack for April. So I'm guessing that's EBC, as you put up before. I take a backpack, which I carry, and mine's 35 litre backpack. Less than 30, I think, is probably too small, but 35, because certainly if you're doing an April Nepal trip, you may encounter very cold weather, and you'll want space for a heavy jacket and all those other things to go in your bag. I mean a thick jacket. So 35 is enough. I've got my rucksack is here at the moment. I can show you if you're still there at the end, but there's that. Boots, certainly, I would not be doing, if I just to talk about Nepal April, when it could be very cold, I would not be wearing lightweight boots. I'd have my Sportivas on. Good ankle protection. They're synthetic, so there's no problem with leather and doubling. I mean, obviously, if you've got some great leather boots that you like, that's fine. But the ankle protection, but also at some point you may be walking through snow, and if you are walking through snow, you need something that's going to be robust enough to do that. And approach shoes, that type of thing, is not good enough, certainly for an April trek. What else have you got? And sleeping bag, yeah, I've got a mine's right here, actually. I'll get it. I keep it in a big bag, lofted when I'm not using it. It's a Mountain Warehouse. It's not a Mountain Warehouse, so it's a mountain equipment bag. That's the bag. It's a three-season bag, and it does just the job. I don't take a 4-season, even though when we did Annapurna it was -20 at one point last year. It happened to be. I was warm as toast because I always I take that and a lightweight silk inner liner, and I think that's been the trick for me all the time. That liner just seems to do something to a sleeping bag. So you're not carrying a really heavy, bulky bag, but so it's a 3-season bag for me, and I have a silk lightweight inner liner, and I get into that every night, and I leave it in the bag, and I'll compress it at the end of the night and put it away. So that's what I use. Keith, you're expert on bags.
Yeah, I mean, I use a PhD sleeping bag, and PhD they aren't cheap. And you basically order your sleeping bag from PhD. They make it for you. And the one thing, like we always say with kit is, and this comes down to rucksacks, it comes down to boots, it comes down to everything. Like, you either you can spend the money now or you can buy cheap and buy twice is what we always say. So, you can go out and spend £50 on a sleeping bag, and it would be fine for a base camp trek. But what I do with my kit, because I'm traveling all the time, I've got pieces of kit now that are 10 years old. My big down jacket that I wear is probably 15 years old now, and they actually still make that same down jacket now for mountain equipment and a Perna jacket. They still make it now. Mine's got to be at least 15 years old. And then when you actually work out the cost of it per year, and that's kind of how I look at gear now, is not looking at it from how much is it going to cost me now. I kind of break it down over the time of that piece of equipment and sort of utilize it that way. So for me, I use a PhD sleeping bag. It is so lightweight, it's so warm. And you can even get it made the length you want it. You can make it, have it the weight you want it. They just literally, you go onto their website and choose how you want the sleeping bag to be for what you want. So I've got a couple of PhD sleeping bags, and I've got them for, what I take to the Sahara Desert is different to what I take to an Everest base camp trek or an Island Peak trek or anything like that. So that's what I do.
But Keith, you're the boss. I've got one sleeping bag, and it's mid-range, 3-season. It's bloody brilliant. I think in the way, use it in the way you can. One day I might have a piece.
And I'm a gear freak, Dave. Like I just buy gear. Like that's my luxury in life is buying kit. So, but yeah. I mean, anything that you sort of see and you think, is that suitable? You can obviously always send us a Facebook message or an email, and we'll always comment and, give you advice on that. So if there's something that you've seen, then, we're more than happy to sort of give advice on certain pieces of kit. But obviously, like we were saying earlier on, your sleeping bag is the one thing that, is going to take up weight in my sleeping bag, I think weighs 500 grams, I think, whereas you can go and get a sleeping bag that weighs 2.5 kilos. So actually that difference in weight is the difference in me having a clean pair of socks every day to not having a clean pair of socks a day on the trek. So I'd much rather have a clean pair of socks and a smaller sleeping bag in that sense. So just going back, because obviously we talked about the North Face bags. One tip for North Faces, if you have a look and see if they've got a North Face outlet shop where you are, they do tend to sell the North Face down bag, North Face duffel bags so that last year's colours, all of that are like so much cheaper. I was in the North Face outlet shop in Birmingham last year, and they were selling like the £90 North Face duffel bags off for £35 a bag, just because they were last year's colours. So, you can get some real good bargains on those. Obviously, you don't have to buy a North Face bag. There are loads of other duffel bag brands out there. And I think, Cotswold always have the mountain equipment ones. They always seem to be on sale in Cotswold. Quite a lot of people buy those. They're really good as well. But yeah, so just have a look. But I would always recommend going for a PVC one. over a canvas type one, just from a weather perspective. Because as Dave was saying earlier, you know, a Sherpa just puts it on their back or straps it to a yak, and if it pours with rain, then they're not going to cover it up for you. And we'll come on to packing and how we pack them a bit later on in the video. But that's what I would advise to do. And again, you know, I have had people who have gone into, I remember one chap went into he bought a Go Outdoors cheap high gear duffel bag for a Kilimanjaro trek, and literally the zip broke before the trek even started on his duffel bag, and we were gaffer taping his bag up every day, every morning, and then having to, you know, we were duct taping it up with spare duct tape we had. So again, you've just got to think about the comfort of you being on the trip, really. So that's kind of your big bag of what you're going to carry your stuff in. And then obviously on most of our treks, although that stuff is carried, we are going to carry a day pack with the stuff that we need for that day on it. And as Dave's already said, you know, he's already spoke about the day pack that he takes. It's very difficult for us to kind of say this is the best day pack, because obviously it needs to fit your body and your back. And, you know, the best advice really is to go into a shop and try a few on. You know, go into any good outdoor shop. They'll have weight in there that you can add into the bag, so you can kind of see how it fits your back. But, you know, things to consider on day packs are obviously the size of them. You know, we've had people who have had sort of like 18-litre day packs, and by the end of the day, they've got everything hanging off them because the bag just isn't big enough to carry what they need to carry that day. Again, you don't want to go too big, but, you know, there's that kind of middle ground, really. I mean, what features do you look for in a day bag, Dave?
Through bitter experience now, I want a ventilated back. If you do mountain training as a professional, you're told not to get a ventilated back because it can hang up if you're climbing with ropes and all the rest of it. But we aren't climbing with ropes. We're trekking, and some of those treks are hot and sweaty at different stages. Even in the coldest climate, they can be very hot and sweaty. And so I go for a ventilated back. I'll just show you. This is what I mean by a ventilated back. There's like a mesh layer between you and the actual body of this happens to be a low alpine, but it isn't. I'm not recommending. I'm just saying ventilated back, and this rucksack suits me brilliantly because of that. So that's my key feature, if you like, for comfort. So you don't get that horrible sweaty back. Then when it turns cold, you've frozen your kidneys. I've got a nice ventilated back, really comfortable. And then from then, I'm not bothered about separate compartments too much. But what is very nice is if it's got the waistband that's got a little zip pocket there where you can put in your lip salve, which you might be using frequently, particularly at high altitude, and maybe your phone, if you're for photographs, that kind of thing, whatever, and bits, perhaps a bit of money. That's, for me, is another useful feature. So those two things on a bag that fits me well. The rest of it, I am fine with. I'm not mad on having room for H2O for water packs inside, because I always carry water bottles because I like to see how much I'm drinking, and I can never tell with a Camelback unless I empty the whole thing. So those are the things that I particularly look for.
Someone's just asked Dave about hydration packs there. And obviously, it's hydration packs are a personal preference, really. I do take a hydration pack and I take a bottle because sometimes I just want to have a drink. And obviously, if you are buying a day pack, then it is handy that it does slot into it and it has got a hole for the tube to come out. So if you are going to take one, then consider that when you are buying a day pack, that it does actually fit the hydration pack. And the one thing that I always do say to people, though, is that, I mean, Dave and I have kind of moved away from the hydration pack now, mainly because of how you get hold of your water. And Dave and I, for the last sort of sort of six to 12 months have been taking a water to go filter bottle with us on treks. And in that sense, you can fill them up from a puddle, you can fill them up from a tap. And that's kind of what we're advising people to take on trips now. On Kilimanjaro, all the water is filtered on Kilimanjaro treks, so you don't need to chlorine tablet or filter it. But on Toubkal treks and Everest Base Camp treks, you've kind of got two options. You either buy the water out of plastic bottles. They do have boiled water in the tea houses, so you can buy boiled water cheaper, or you can do what we do and use the filtered bottles, and then you just fill them up as in when you are. And it means kind of then you don't have to be carrying so much water at the start of the day, because you can just keep filling your bottles up as you go. So I am moving away from the hydration pack to the actual filtered bottles more now, and not really carrying a hydration pack. And again, a feature for a day pack for me is actually having a bag that I can just tuck one into the side pocket, so I can actually reach around the back and take it out and put it back in easily. So I haven't got to stop, get my bottle out of my bag and do all that. So for me, pockets on the sides, or mesh pockets on the sides, are really important from a day pack perspective for me. Dave and I both use the same day pack, actually. I mean, I always used to use an Osprey pack and loved Osprey packs, but I did buy that low alpine pack about a year ago. And the best feature about that pack for me is the fact that it's got a zip pocket all the way down the side to get into the main compartment.
Yeah.
And as we were saying about duffel bags at the start, about being able to open it up and see everything in it, with that day pack, you can kind of do that. You're never having to pull anything out to find anything. You can actually get to everything you need to get to. So that's kind of my tips for a day pack, really. I suppose the biggest tip is, if you just go in and choose, go into a shop, have it fitted properly, make sure it fits your back. Obviously, if you've already had an Osprey pack before, you kind of know the fit and feel of it. So you can go and buy another one. And it's like we say with walking boots. With walking boots, once you've had a brand before, it's very easy then. You know the sizing, you know how they fit. They haven't really changed. You can buy the same one. But I would never go and buy a day pack or a pair of boots online if I've never worn or never used that brand before. So for me, it's all about brand knowledge, really. And the best way to do that is just go in the shop, speak to one of the guys in the shop, tell them what you're doing, and then they'll fit you out properly. And, it's also thinking about, like, there's nothing wrong with Go Outdoors. Please don't get me wrong. Go Outdoors sell plenty of great stuff, but there are really good independent outdoor shops out there that have, people who are really keen on the outdoors, that know the kit. They go on staff training days. They bring the brand into the shop, so the staff are really knowledgeable about the kit. And I just think, a lot of the high street brand outdoor shops, you don't tend to get that. I mean, Cotswolds, those sorts of shops, they're great. They do really good staff training. They're really knowledgeable in that. But, Go Outdoors, places like that, I don't think they have the same staff training for their staff. And they sell such a range of equipment as well in there, from fishing to horse riding. They can't, in my opinion, they can't have the expertise on everything. So if you can, use an independent shop, shop local, and support them if you can do that. So that's what I would do. Now, carry on, Dave.
Just quickly, the question was about water and chlorine tabs. Just to say, next week we'll do one of these on self-care, and we'll cover everything from your feet to what you take, what you drink, what you eat, everything really, and how to look after your skin and your whole metabolism. So that'll be next week.
Perfect. Okay. So, like we say, so we've now covered what we carry in our big bag, what we on our day pack. But quite a lot of the trips that we do, you do get free time before and after the trek, and you are able to leave stuff in the hotel, because we tend to use the same hotel before we start and then when we return back. So Marrakesh, Kathmandu, those sorts of places. So you haven't got to carry everything. You haven't got to take everything with you. You can leave stuff behind. And one tip that I always use is that I never use my Daypack as my bag that I take on the aeroplane. Things like Kilimanjaro treks, Toubkal treks, especially the Sahara Desert trek, that bag gets so dusty and dirty when you're on the trek that the last thing you want to do is then have to carry that bag back through an airport and back into the UK. So for me, when I'm packing my bag and I'm packing my duffel bag, I always put my day sack in the bottom of my bag, and that's where it stays when I'm traveling. And then I've got a small wheelie suitcase that goes on as my hand luggage onto the aeroplane. And then that's the bag then that I leave at the hotel to come back to, that anything that I'm not taking on the trek, that's the bag that I use. So actually, it's really important. If you aren't going to do that, that's fine. But I think you are going to need to have another bag with you or something to leave your leisure clothes in for your last couple of days in the hotel if you want to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be carrying everything with you on the trek. So that's just one tip that I say to people. You need 3 bags with you, really. And the easiest way I found to do that is to actually have a different bag that you take onto the aeroplane. And it also means then that when you come back, you're all clean and all your dirty stuff's in your duffel bag, and you haven't got to worry about that. Do you want to talk about how you pack your bag, Dave?
Yes. And again, we're talking about multi-purpose. I do not just put my stuff in my bag, obviously. Boots go in the bottom when I'm packing my big bag for the main flight out to wherever we're going. Boots in the bottom. Inside my boots go all my delicate stuff. iPods, electronics, things like that, oximeter, things I want to keep really safe. But everything else, like underwear, t-shirt tops, base layers, I put into bags. In particular, I know Keith uses a slightly different system, but I find this is, for me, works. I use what are called dry bags. That's these things here. They have a roll top on them. You put things in, you can roll the top up, compress the air out, clip them, and once you clip them like that, and they are tight and compressed, they are pretty damn waterproof. But also what you've done is you've compressed everything, because we're not going on a fashion show, are we, folks? You've compressed everything down to its smallest level. So, and I know this bag at the moment is it's called a compression bag, and inside are all the others, different colours, and so they're all marked, and I just know unders in one, but base layers in another, fleece in another, and it's all compressed and in my bag. Also in my bag, of course, and just to go back where we started really from the query, with your sleeping bag, you will get what's a compression sack. And that too has this clip system at the top. It also will have a little air vent on it, and that you jam your sleeping bag into that every day, squeeze it up, clip it, put it in your bag. Everything's in there under pressure, but what you do is you're maximizing the use of space. So I do it going out. Maybe I don't compress it so much going out because we're flying out on a plane with 25 kilos, but when we go on the trek, I don't want loads of bulk, and I want to know yellow, that's my pants, there they are, or green, that's my unders. Now you haven't got to do it like that, but I think it's really helpful to segregate everything, because when you are leaving very early in the morning, either on the first day or any day on a long trek, maybe you've not slept very well, it's dark, and you've got to get going, and you're on a long trek, and you're not going to ever go back to that same place again on that trek. You don't want to be leaving things behind. If it's all like that, you know exactly where your gear is, you take it out, put it away, job done, and you really get into a routine about it. And that routine is a routine part of self-care, really. It's what keeps you on a long trip, a 15-day trip, and also on a short trek. It becomes automatic. Now, I've had lots of practice at this, so it is more or less automatic, but segregating your gear into waterproof bags in particular, I think is really, really useful. Keith?
Yeah, I mean, that just gives you extra protection. Obviously, no bag is 100% waterproof. Water will still get in your duffel bag. It's got a zip in it. You know, the zips aren't waterproof. So having everything in dry bags is really important. I will just say as well, you said about sleeping bags then, Dave, some dry bags, some sleeping bags don't come with a dry bag. It's just a compression sack. So it's really important to make sure that your sleeping bag is in a dry bag, because compression sacks aren't always there to keep it dry. It's just there to make things smaller. And just a couple of things. Sorry, Dave?
A bin liner. Yeah, a bin liner, you know, a sleeping bag, it hasn't got a compression sack. You don't want to buy one. Just put it in its own compression bag, and the waterproof bit can be a bin liner wrapped up, and it slips into your bag really quickly.
Yeah, and like those dry bags that Dave was just showing you there, you can get loads of different sizes. Some of them come with windows in them, so it makes it easier for you to see what's in each one. But from our perspective, you know, we've been on so many trips with so many groups in the past. You know, you go into some of the rooms of people in the morning and they've just literally emptied everything out of their bags on a bed, and they're spending half an hour packing it all back in again. You know, if you are organised and everything's in a duffel bag and you just take it, you know, the bits out that you want and you know where everything is. And that's sometimes why it is better to have a slightly bigger duffel bag, because actually it just gives you more space that you don't need to then pull everything out to find everything. It's kind of just a bit more easy to sort out for yourself. And it just makes that whole logistic of things, you know, for me, when I'm on a trek, you know, I kind of sort all my kit out for the next morning that night. So literally the only thing I need to do in the morning is get myself up, get dressed, which has already been sorted, pack my sleeping bag away, put it in my bag, and I'm then good to go for the day. I haven't got to get everything out and find everything. And that organisation of having everything like that just makes it so much easier from a trip perspective, really. Like I say, if you've got any other questions, you know, do ask them in the comments box. You know, we're not just talking about bags today. We will answer any questions that you guys have got. You know, if you have just joined us and you weren't here at the start, you know, we are going to do one of these every week and just go through a different topic. But, you know, we are here on a Tuesday to give you any tips or answer any questions that you might have. Today's topic was obviously on bags, but, you know, each week we'll do a different topic.
I've got two more things, Keith, just very quickly. One mandatory, and just a reminder, because I have to keep doing this all the time. When you get to your flight in the UK, before you fly out, any electronics that you have, power packs, that kind of thing, must go in your carry-on bag, the bag that goes into the cabin. Okay, that's the first thing. Just a constant reminder. The last thing is about packing. You can also, before you leave, help yourself a lot, particularly if you're on a long trek. And one of the things can bring comfort, particularly when you're tired, is that people find if they get their hiking socks and then they're going to be changing into, if you talcum powder them and then put them in your bag, just forget about them. When you get them out on that day when you're tired in the morning and you put on those lovely silky, clean, dry, warm socks, and it's freezing outside and you've got to get going, and once you get going you're fine, but you're just that morning start. So pre-powdering your socks, just a little tip from the wise. Okay, thanks, Keith.
That's a great tip. I think, you know, the thing with it is, you know, with packing, it does become a bit of an art, and, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, the more trips you do, it just gets you better prepared for it. And obviously, you know, we are there, you know, Dave and I, you know, we've done the trips numerous times before, and so have our other guides. So, you know, we kind of know what to expect and what's ahead. So it kind of does make packing easier for us. And, you know, I have made quite a few YouTube videos on different treks of what I pack for each trek. they are on the YouTube channel, and I have just put a link into the YouTube channel there for some of our videos. But dry bags are my biggest tip to take out of this, really, to get everything sorted, to keep everything dry. You know, the best thing with dry bags in the world is that all you do, I always take one, you know, huge, it's almost a rucksack liner rather than a dry bag, that I literally use for my dirty washing. And then by the end of the trek, pretty much everything's gone into that bag, and I can just roll it down and leave it until I actually get to the washing, when I get home. But yeah, that's kind of my big takeaway, really, is kind of keeping everything separate and then doing it that way. Obviously, other tips you might want to consider when you're packing is, I know a lot of people will wear their boots on the aeroplane. Have a think about what kit you potentially don't want. You know, it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. We have had groups where we've had bags go missing on the outward flight to the trip. So you need to have a think about what kit, you know, especially things like medication and things like that. You want to make sure that you're not without that when you arrive in country. I mean, I remember we did an Everest base camp trek. And this goes back to Dave's point about battery packs. People had left their battery packs in their main bags. Their bags got held up in I can't remember which airport it was now, but it was one of the, I think it was Delhi airport. Their bags got held up in Delhi. They didn't fly out with them. They wouldn't let their bags go and remove their battery packs. But it was kind of 2 days into the Everest Base Camp trek before their bags actually caught up with them, because they had made that error. You know, they didn't have their boots with them. You know, obviously the great thing about group trekking was we all had stuff we could, you know, lend them so they could kind of carry on. But there were things that were, you know, personal to them, like their boots and things like that they just didn't have. So when you are packing your bag and flying out, I mean, I don't wear my boots anymore. I always used to wear my boots, but I've kind of stopped doing it now. And I've normally just got a pair of approach shoes on my feet. So at that point, if I did have to, at least I've got a pair of approach shoes that I can walk with for that day. But, you know, we had people who were wearing sandals or flip-flops that had no boots with them at all on that trek. So it is important to think about, you know, if you were to lose your bag, and especially on some of the long haul flights, because some of the long haul flights do allow you, like 30 kilos of luggage on some long haul flights if you're doing a Kathmandu or a Kilimanjaro one. Yeah. So actually thinking about splitting your luggage, because it would be unfortunate for both of your bags to go missing on that flight. So if you split everything in half, at least you would have half of your, obviously don't put one shoe in one and one shoe in another, because that wouldn't be much good. But at least if you split your stuff in half, you know, you would still have half of your trekking clothes available for you to use. So those are kind of my tips on packing, with Dave's help there. We're going to kind of, as there's no other questions in the group, we're going to kind of bring this video to an end. So thanks for coming in and watching it. We'll be back next Tuesday at 12 o'clock for the next one. But if you have got any questions on kit or bags, or there's something you're not sure about, like I said, you can always, you know, send us a message via email, or just message us on the Facebook group or anything like that, and we'll just come back. You know, we have had people before who have been in Cotswolds and they take a photo of something and ask if it's suitable, and that's fine. We're more than happy to answer those questions. So thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll be back next week for some more travel tips with us. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers. Bye.